Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ascension Wellness Center's Staying Well series. My name is Lori Ennis. I'm a registered dietitian and yoga instructor, and I'm here today to talk to you about eating well. Specifically, I want to talk to you about mindfully eating, which is the focus of my practice. I want to give you a little bit of background as to how my nutrition world and my mindfulness world merged to get me where I am today. I, out of graduate school, implemented a grant program for the USDA where I went into rural communities and I really taught just the basic nutrition building blocks. What is carb? What is fat? What's a portion size? Just very simple nutrition. I came out of that job realizing, wow, we've really overcomplicated nutrition. And if we maybe simplified it down, brought it back down to the ground level, just the basic building blocks, it may reach more people that way. I then went to work as a corporate dietitian for a long-term care company. And so I worked in nursing homes all over Georgia. And what I loved about that job, that is as a dietitian, I wasn't telling people what they couldn't have anymore. I was really focused on quality of life. At this point, I wanted them to enjoy their food. They'd earned it. They had lived a long life. I came out of that job thinking, why can't we all enjoy our food like that? Why do we have to live a long life before we get that quality of life as it relates to food? So life happened. I had children. We moved to Alabama. And I kind of phased out telling people what I did because when I did, everybody said, oh, well, I need to call you. I need to lose weight. And it just didn't sit well with me that as a dietitian, that is what people thought of, that yes, I'm here to restrict you. So your end result would be to lose weight. I didn't know why that didn't sit well. It just didn't sit well. So fast forward a few years, around 2016, I really started honing in on my mindfulness practice. And I realized that although I had always practiced being mindful, that I didn't really do a whole body mindfulness practice. I was focused on one area of my life in certain times of my life, but that I could have a mindfulness practice in every area of my life, mind, body, spirit, every day. And so I did my yoga training in 2017. Yoga was not a physical practice when it first started. It was meditation, it was self-study. And I was lucky enough that my teacher believed that you could not teach authentically unless you knew your authentic self. And so along with learning how to teach yoga, we did a very deep dive into self-study. I really learned a lot about my own personal mindfulness practices, about who I was, and I came out on the other side of that and really focused on my mindfulness practice. Just in the last year, I've started to incorporate my nutrition into this mindfulness practice. I wanted to figure out a way to be able to teach or guide other people to bring some joy back into their life as it relates to food, changing the relationship that they have with their food and their diet by being mindful about your meals and about your food and about eating. And so that leads me to what we're going to talk about today, which is how can we be more mindful as it relates to our food and our diet. I know Jeannie did an excellent job talking about mindfulness and stress reduction last week. Mindfulness, again, is about tuning in to the present moment with kindness and curiosity. Tuning into the present moment with kindness and curiosity. When we start to do that in any area of our life, including food, it helps to develop a growing trust in our inner wisdom, because Our bodies are a powerful guide. And as it relates to food, the body has amazing sensors for what food is healthy, what food is poison, how much food it needs to consume, and the nutrition it needs. It knows all of that. It is a powerful guide. We just need to learn how to tap into that as it relates to your food and your diet. So on the opposite end of that spectrum is mindless eating, which I know I am in good company when I say I'm totally guilty of that, especially before we have all been quarantined and our life has drastically slowed down. I mean, I had 19 things going through my head at all times, and I would oftentimes eat lunch at the counter, standing, quickly. A lot of times I'd have lunch in the carpool line, trying to get it in before the kids got in the car. Don't know what I ate, how long it took me to eat, about tasting the food. None of that. It was too quick. I was just doing it because it was the task of the day and I was hungry. I knew I was hungry, probably overly hungry. So I got food and I ate. But did I stop to actually be mindful about it? No. Our brains aren't designed with the ability to be present on more than one thing at a time. And that lends itself to mindless activities, and including eating. But the good news is the repetition of renewed attention to the present moment, it actually builds the brain's capacity to stay present more often. So the more we practice it, the more we'll be in the moment. So I also want to, gentle reminder here that the practice of mindfulness is just the opposite of the practice of judgment. The practice of mindfulness is the opposite of the practice of judgment. I say this because I'm sure if I was in a room and I asked you to raise your hand, how many people have felt guilty about some food that they've eaten? That's a very common feeling when it comes to some certain food items, right? And it's because it's been told that it's bad for you, or it's not good for you, or you shouldn't eat it. And oftentimes guilt, which gives rise to shame, will cause you to do things that you wouldn't normally have done, like sneaking the food or eating more of it than you would have normally if you just allowed yourself to eat it. And more importantly, it just takes the pleasure out of it to have that guilt associated with food. And you may regret eating a lot of food or a certain food, but that's usually feel bad. We've all eaten a really heavy meal and felt really bad. All of a sudden our pants just don't feel as loose anymore. That's an uncomfortable feeling. And so we try not to repeat those things that make us not feel good. And we want to take the guilt out of food. I want to bring the joy back into food. I'm going to talk a little bit about diet and lifestyle, or diet versus lifestyle right now. I mean, we live in a diet culture. There's another diet around every corner. There's so many people telling you what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat. When you think about diet, what do you think about? You think about what you can't have, or what the list of things you can have that half of the things on there you don't really love, which takes the joy out of eating. You're going to eat it because the diet says you should eat it, but are you enjoying it? Probably not. And then when you say you can't have something, our natural instinct is to want it more. And more importantly, diets are temporary. They're temporary. Food is a constant. It is part of our life. And a diet is just temporary. So we want to create a mindset that food is a lifestyle. It's part of our lifestyle, just like our spiritual practices, our physical practices, our mental practices. Food is part of our lifestyle, and let's learn how to incorporate it back into our world in a positive way. Just to note, we're no less intuitive than animals, but most humans would just cut themselves off from their body's natural guidance. And being mindful and coming back to that present moment will help just fine tune your ability to listen to your inner wisdom and let it guide you rather than having outside sources guide you and tell you what you need. Your body is your biggest advocate and your best guide. So how do we begin doing this? I've created a handout that is in the comments, I believe. And it'll have most of this information I'm about to go over on it for you to have, take home, study it. But the first few things on this list may be a little cringeworthy because it kind of goes against what we have been conditioned to believe. The first thing is get off the diets. Just delete the word diet from your vocabulary. Again, for all the reasons I just listed. It's temporary, guilt-inducing. You cannot sustain eating and restricting your body of certain nutrients for a long period of time. Your body is designed to constantly want to be reassured that food will be available for it. When you restrict those foods or certain nutrients from your body, it thinks it's going into starvation mode. And so the nutrients you are putting in your body are being mainly stored as fat so that it can be used as energy. And so it's doing the opposite of what you intended to do to begin with. If your body's constantly knowing it's safe and there's going to be a constant food supply, whatever you're putting in your body is going to be used efficiently. So get off the diets. Change the mindset. The second thing is get off the scale. Stop weighing yourself. I mean, has that number ever helped you lose weight? Or has it been more anxiety and guilt inducing? Anxiety because you need to get there or want to get there. Guilt because you didn't get there. So just get the scales out of the house. Don't step on that scale. I want you to really tune into how your body feels. And it's just like us eating that big meal earlier, feeling really heavy. You start to feel your clothes. You feel bloated the next day. That's your body's way of telling you, okay, you probably ate too much yesterday. Maybe scale it back today. You don't need that number to tell you that. And the third thing is set one goal besides weight loss to start with. That number on the scale is just an external validation of who you are, where you think you want to be. Instead of setting your goal at this number that the weight you want to be or the number of pounds you want to lose, instead ask yourself, how would you like to be acting or thinking differently that would ultimately result in weight loss? So really it's about the behaviors. Is how would you act or think differently about food that maybe ultimately will result in weight loss, but weight loss is not your end goal. So how do we set these goals? How do we even start doing this? I've been really studying a book called The Mindfulness-Based Eating Solution, and I've taken some guidelines from there because I think they're really solid. And again, it's on your handout, but we're going to go through it right now. These are actual guidelines that you can use when eating a meal, when you're preparing to eat a meal and during the meal to help you begin the journey of becoming more mindful while you're eating. So it's basics. It's an acronym, BASICS, and we're going to go through each one of those. So here are the basics. B, grab my little cheat sheet here. Breathe and belly check for hunger before you eat. So when you're walking into that kitchen, and what better time to do this than now when we're all at home and have the time to actually focus on this and we're not running around, but to go in and go, okay, am I hungry? Do I actually feel the body telling me I'm hungry? The biological hunger that we all have, the grumbling in the belly, that represents that biological hunger. That same hunger that if you don't feed, well, then the body is going to keep telling you, hey, I'm hungry, you haven't fed me, in other ways. Like, everyone's heard the word hangry. I mean, my family knows I get hangry. You get irritable, you get lightheaded, it's difficult to concentrate, you stomach pain, headache. That's your body's way of telling you, hey, dude, you went too long, I need food. Again, that's you tapping into whether you're really hungry or not. There's lots of reasons that we go into the kitchen to get food. And a lot of the times it's not because we're hungry. And so what this is asking you to do is really assess that before you eat a snack or your meal. I'm going to segue a little bit here because I think it begs the question of not only are you hungry, but if you're not feeling those pains, why are you in there eating? Are you eating because you're stressed? Are you eating because you're tired? Are you eating because you're hormonal? All of those things happen. Just know why you're eating. Just know your intention behind it. That's what B is about. Just check in with, why you're eating. So we move on to A, which is assess your food. And I'm not talking about assessing your food in numbers. How many carbs, how much fat, how many calories. We've gotten to this place where we assess food based off numbers, and it just really, rather than using our senses to assess our food. And so this is what I'm asking you to do in this part of this, which is to look at your food. What color is it? What does it smell like? Does it look appealing to you? Do you know what it is? Is it processed or is it a whole food? Really taking a minute to stop and see your food and assess it as it is in that moment, instead of based off numbers or what somebody's told you it should be. So then we move on to S, which is slow down. It takes 20 minutes for your brain to get the signal that you're full. And again, if we were all sitting in a room and I said, raise your hand if you remember the last time it took you 20 minutes to eat. I mean, mine included, would be down, because we don't take the time to just slow down and eat our meal. Ways you can do this is put your fork down in between bites. Take sips of water in between bites. Have conversation with people at a meal. Get away from eating a meal in front of the TV or a device. There's lots of ways that you can slow down the process of eating. So then we move on to I, which is investigate your hunger throughout your meal, particularly halfway through. And so there's another little acronym here to investigate this, which is stop halfway through, take a breath, observe the signs of whether your fullness, observe the signs of your fullness and the taste of your food. And if you're still hungry, go on and finish your meal. And if you're not, contrary to how a lot of us were raised, you don't have to finish your plate. You do not have to clean your plate. You can save the rest for leftovers. If you're worried about food waste, you can put your food on a salad plate instead of a dinner plate. Then you won't put so much food on there. And over time, as you practice this, you are going to know how much food that your body needs at any given meal, because you're going to practice it enough that you can eyeball on that plate, okay, that's going to be plenty for me, because I know I have a stopping point, because you practice stopping halfway through, seeing how you feel, and stopping if you're full. So we're going to move on now to C, which is chew your food thoroughly, which seems pretty self-explanatory, I know. But if you really sit down and think about it, do you really think about how many times you chew your bites? I don't, unless I'm actually, practicing this mindful eating. So digestion starts in your mouth, but oftentimes we don't chew our food long enough for that process to even really get going before we swallow it. Maybe something you can set up for yourself here is to say your next snack, set a number of chews per bite. Say you're going to chew 10 chews per bite, and just see how you feel about that. See how you taste the food differently. See how you start to feel the digestion process starting in your mouth. It's just a fun activity to not only slow the pace at which you're eating, but to actually taste your food differently. So then we move on to savor your food. And this is what I was talking, I go back to my nursing home days where it's really about the quality of life. It is about, are you enjoying what you're eating? Is it satisfying you in the moment? And really taking time to choose your food based off what your body is feeling like it needs and what you desire. When you have cravings, I want to stop here and pause here and talk about cravings for just a second. I want to encourage you to honor those cravings. And this is the reason why. If you're craving chocolate and you go, because chocolate's bad food, everyone said, you go to the refrigerator, you get a handful of carrots, chomp on the carrots to satisfy your craving for chocolate. And even when you say it out loud, one on one, that doesn't add up. So your craving for chocolate is still going to be there. So rather than push it away, how about honor it with your bite of chocolate and enjoy it? Now, this is the thing about cravings. I have many cravings too, and I have many cravings for things that aren't quote unquote healthy. But what I want you to notice when you honor your cravings is how your body feels after you eat that food or after you eat that meal. How do you feel the next day when you wake up? Just start to notice how certain foods make you feel. And I think it will be really enlightening to see, oh, that really made me feel yuck. So you may not do that as often anymore, but the whole foods that you incorporate into your diet, the complete meals, the grains, the veggies, the fruits, how does that make you feel? Really think about those things after you eat. Really check into your body and see what your body is telling you. The basics of mindful eating will help you become conscious about what, when, why, and how you eat. And I think that is so important in really tapping into your inner guidance, your wise body that we're living in. It will tell you what you need and when you need it. This can go all the way back to the womb. When we're growing babies, the babies will say, they will tell the mama what they need. The mama's going to eat it. The mama is going to be depleted of nutrients. She's going to have cravings. I know I had cravings for certain things. The body's telling you that it needs it. I watch my children and I see that they go through phases where they just really want certain food groups, and candy aside, which they consider a food group, but my youngest will go through phases where she just wants dairy and yogurt and milk, and then it'll fade out. And so I believe that the cravings are our body's way of telling us that we need to satisfy a certain nutrient need in a certain way, even the chocolate. So pay attention to that, honor that, take the guilt aside, enjoy it, but then notice how your body feels. And this is the thing with this, we're not going to be able to be present with every meal. That's not reality. But maybe choose one meal, choose one snack, and just be kind to yourself as you start to practice this more mindful approach to eating. I mean, you spend a lifetime developing habits, ideas, thoughts about food and eating. Understanding them and changing them will take time, and it's going to take patience. There will be stumbling blocks along the way. But that's okay. Pick yourself up and keep going, because it is a practice. And I've included another handout, and it's backwards, I know, but here it is, the how to build a mindful bowl, because we eat a lot of bowls in our house. It's a quick and easy way to get a nutritious meal in. And you've got greens and carbohydrates and vegetables and protein and healthy fats, and then any spices to spice it up. And you'll see that I've given you recommendations, lots of recommendations for each one of those categories, and I'm sure you've got more you could add to it. This is a great way to practice mindfulness when you're preparing food, because you're going through this list and you think, or whatever you've got in your fridge, and you stop and you think, okay, is this what I really want today? Is this going to satisfy me in this meal? This is a great way to practice mindfulness as you're preparing your food before you practice these mindfulness guidelines as you're eating your food. So I hope you enjoy that. And, as I said before, this is the focus of my practice, and we've really just scratched the surface today of what mindfulness eating can be. And I'd love to help you dive deeper in understanding why you eat what you eat, and assist in helping you redefine your relationship with food. I just want to help bring joy back into eating, because I know we can all have that quality of life as it relates to our food and our diet. I break down my consultations in 3 different sessions. In the first session, we'll dive into the history of your relationship with food, how it was developed, and then how it's evolved over the years. And then the second session, we'll talk about how to initiate some behavior change using the mindful eating approach. And because that's going to be different for everybody, because everybody's history with food and relationship with food is different. And then finally, the third session, really getting practical, diving into your pantry and your fridge, evaluating, favorite recipes to see if we can make them a little healthier for you, and introducing new recipes and new foods. So that's how the consultations are set up. If you're interested in diving a little deeper and learning more about this, and bringing the joy back into eating, please contact me. You can find my information on the Ascension website, or I'm available on Facebook. But I hope you all have enjoyed this session about mindfully eating, and I wish you all the best on beginning your journey into this new mindful approach, and maybe improving your relationship with food. And I'll be happy to answer any questions in the comments. Just post them in the comments, and I'll be visiting the comments periodically for folks who didn't get to see the video right when it was put up. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you are all well, and I hope to see you soon in person. Take care.